You know, when you think of long wars, you probably think of something like the Hundred Years' War, right? Well, what if I told you about a conflict that lasted almost 8 times as long? We're diving into a struggle that didn't just shape a nation, it completely redrew the map of Europe. We're talking about the Reconquista, a war that lasted 781 years.
Yeah, just let that number sink in. 781 years. It's almost impossible to really wrap your head around that. That's dozens and dozens of generations of people, Christians, Muslims, living, fighting, and sometimes even coexisting on the same piece of land, where the border was always moving. This wasn't just a war, it was basically an entire era of history defined by this one long conflict.
And that really brings us to the core question of this whole story. I mean, it is the ultimate underdog tale, isn't it? How on earth did a tiny, isolated group of Christian holdouts hiding out in the mountains manage to eventually turn the tide and reclaim an entire peninsula from one of the most powerful and advanced empires on the planet? It's an incredible story of fortune's wheel just turning and turning again. So to understand how it all ended, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning. The year is 711. The Iberian Peninsula, what we now call Spain and Portugal, it's ruled by a kingdom that's really on the brink of just falling apart. And right across the Strait of Water, a new and incredibly powerful force is watching and waiting.
And this slide, it just perfectly lays out the two players on a collision course. On one side, you have the Christian Visigothic kingdom. Now on paper, they look pretty good, wealthy, centralized, but in reality, they were fatally brittle, just paralyzed by constant, brutal infighting over who should be king. And on the other side, the Umayyad Caliphate. This wasn't just some regional kingdom. Oh no, this was a global superpower, stretching all the way from the Atlantic Ocean to Persia, totally united and driven by a mission to expand. So in 711, this Berber general, Tariq ibn Ziyad, he leads an army of about 7,000 men across the water. They land on this huge rock that would end up being named after him, Jabal Tariq, or Tariq's Mountain, which you guessed it, we call Gibraltar today. The legend is amazing. He supposedly burned his own ships and told his men, "Behind you is the sea, before you the enemy. It was do or die."
And the Visigothic response? It was a complete and utter disaster. Their king, Roderick, he pulls together this massive army, but it's totally split by politics. And here's the crucial moment. During the big battle, nobles who were loyal to the previous king's family either switched sides or just left. So Tariq's much smaller force wins this absolutely stunning victory. King Roderick vanishes, never seen again, and his whole kingdom just crumbles.
In just a few years, almost the entire peninsula is under Muslim rule, and it gets a new name, Al-Andalus. The conquest seemed totally complete. But way up in the rugged northern mountains, a tiny little spark of resistance managed to survive, setting the stage for two completely different worlds to grow right next to each other. And wow, this slide really shows you the divide. Down south, you have Al-Andalus, which becomes this glittering beacon of civilization. I mean, it was one of the most advanced societies in all of Europe, a global hub for learning, trade, and culture. And meanwhile, up in the north, the Christian resistance was, well, it was basically a few huts in a cave. They were scrappy, isolated, and battered, but the key thing is they were still there. So this little pocket of resistance gets a name, the Kingdom of Asturias. It was led by a Visigothic nobleman named Pelayo. Around the year 722, he leads a successful ambush against a small Muslim force at a place called Covadonga. Now, militarily, it was a tiny skirmish, not a huge battle. But symbolically, oh, it was massive. It became the founding myth of the whole Reconquista, the proof that this fight was far from over. All right, so for the next few hundred years, things kind of settle into this long, tense standoff. The Christian kingdoms slowly, very slowly expand out of their mountain hideouts, while Al-Andalus hits its absolute golden age under the Caliphate of Córdoba. But just when it seemed like Al-Andalus was invincible, it started to crack from the inside out. And here it is, this is the big turning point. In the early 1000s, a terrible civil war just rips the Caliphate of Córdoba apart. This unified superpower shatters into dozens of little competing kingdoms called taifas. And just like that, the unified South is gone. Instead, you've got this collection of rivals who are fighting each other just as much, if not more, than they're fighting the Christians. This internal collapse was the single biggest opening the Christian kingdoms had been waiting for. And would you believe it, the roles just completely flip.
The Christian kingdoms up north are now actually more organized and more unified than the bickering taifas down south. It got so wild that some Muslim taifa rulers actually started paying Christian kings for protection from their other Muslim rivals. The whole seesaw of power had just tilted completely in the other direction. This reversal kicks off a huge chain of events. In 1085, the Christians capture Toledo, the old Visigothic capital. That was a massive psychological blow. The panicked taifas call for help from North Africa, which leads to the arrival of these two very hardcore dynasties, first the Almoravids and then the Almohads. These guys were religious zealots. They didn't just come to fight Christians, they came to take over, seeing the taifa kings as soft and decadent. They temporarily reunited Al-Andalus, but they did it by force. So all this tension is just simmering, and it's about to boil over into something huge. Everything comes to a head in the year 1212 at the Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa. You have the powerful Almohad army facing this incredibly rare unified front of Christian kingdoms from all over the peninsula, plus crusaders from France. This was it. This was seen as the winner-take-all showdown for the whole peninsula. And the Christian coalition won. And it wasn't just a victory, they absolutely shattered the Almohad army. This battle was the point of no return. It permanently broke the back of Muslim military power in Iberia and threw the gates wide open for the conquest of the south. After that battle, the Christian advance was like a tidal wave. The great Muslim cities of the south, Córdoba, Seville, they fell one after another. By the mid-1200s, almost all of Al-Andalus was gone. Only one last bastion remained, holding out against all odds. Tucked away in the southern mountains, the Kingdom of Granada managed to hang on, and it survived for another 250 years. Not through brute force, but through this brilliant, delicate, diplomatic game. Its rulers were masters of playing Christian kingdoms against each other. They paid huge amounts of gold in tribute and served as this crucial link for trade with North Africa. It basically made Granada more valuable to the Christians as a vassal than as a conquered territory. But that kind of balancing act, well, it can't last forever. The game changer was the marriage of Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile. This power couple united the Christian kingdoms, creating the superstate we now know as Spain. And suddenly, Granada's time was up. These new monarchs had one single goal: finish the Reconquista. After one last grinding 10-year war, the final Muslim ruler of Granada handed over the keys to the city. That was January 2nd, 1492. And the long struggle was finally over. But look at these dates. Just think about this for a second. In the exact same year that the Reconquista ends, the very same monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella, agree to fund a crazy voyage by an Italian sailor named Christopher Columbus. So in the same year that one massive era of conquest comes to a close in Europe, a brand new one kicks off on a global scale. And that leaves us with this one last big question. After 781 years, the Reconquista had forged this unique culture of military expansion and religious zeal. So when the war at home was finally done, did that powerful energy just fizzle out? Or was it simply packed onto ships and exported to a new world?